Welcome back to 4 Geeks by Geeks, a place where geeks come to geek out. As always, I am Bozer, and today I'm going to teach you how to play Sorcerer. This is your first time on the channel, we geek out every single week about anime, video games, movies and entertainment, and of course, tabletop gaming. All of our tabletop gaming is brought to you by Secret Door Games, located at 215 Main Street in downtown Elkhart. Make sure you pop in there and tell them hello, and they can set you up with any of your tabletop needs, including your very own Sorcerer. So if this looks like the kind of game for you, make sure you pop down there, right downtown Elkhart, and pick up your very own copy of Sorcerer. Mention 4 Geeks by Geeks, and they'll even give you a discount. Alright, let's get right into it. In Sorcerer, you are playing as a Dark Sorcerer trying to take over Victorian London. You're doing it bit by bit, battle map by battle map, fighting your other fellow sorcerers by trying to win over the territory, using spells, summoning minions, and just being a bad kind of dude. So, to play this game, this is originally meant, I think, for a 2-player game, but they do have 3-player and 4-player kind of different formats. And I'll make mention of those when we get there, but I'm going to basically explain the rules, how a 2-player game works. So to begin, first you need to set up your player's mat in front of you. It's got a ton of helpful things, including all the rules for the action phase in each phase of the battle. It's got a marker for your energy over here on the left, and as well as your action points, your 6 action points that you're going to get each round, an action tracker. Each player will get their own mat and start off with 1 omen token that they're going to place on their map. I'll tell you about what those mean in a little bit. You're going to put the 3 maps in front of you, which include Southwark London, Old London, and Whitechapel. Those are the 3 areas that you are trying to vie for. Basically, if you win 2 out of 3, you are the winner. You are the King Sorcerer of London. You are the bad dude of the night. But first, you have to create your Sorcerer. So let's go ahead and grab those decks and do that. Alright, so the first thing that you're going to need to do is build your player deck. Now, Sorcerer is basically a deck building game that you create your deck made of 3 separate decks and combined into one. You're going to have a character deck, a lineage deck, and a domain deck. Now, these cards are basically your character and their own special abilities, what kind of sorcery they come from, and where that sorcerer hails from. Now, each of these decks is going to have a skill card that goes along with it. The character skill card will be red, the lineage skill card will be white on the back, and the domain skill card will be black. All the rest of the other cards in the entire game are brown, and those are made up to combine and create your grimoire or your spell book that you're going to be playing from for the rest of the game. So in whatever fashion you wish to choose, if it's between 2 people or more, you can randomly select. You can hold out all the skills cards and let people select that way randomly, or a lot of times they would recommend a drafting method, meaning that one person chooses a deck and then the next person would get to choose theirs. Then for the next round, other player would then get to choose the lineage deck, for example, first, and first player would then choose a lineage deck second. Whatever, it's your house, play however you want. So let's say that I am going to play with this character, which is Zevrain, and his lineage is the Demonologist, and he hails from the Outcast Sanctuary. So my character would be Zevrain, the Demonologist of the Outcast Sanctuary. It's got a lot of fun lore in it that helps you just kind of play into the character and role play a little bit. So, put on a wizard hat and have a ball, you guys. So then we would both choose that character. We would set our skill cards aside, meaning those fancy ones with the different colored backs. I lost my deck that I just sat down. There it is, of the Outcast Sanctuary. And then all the remaining cards would then get shuffled up and combined to make your grimoire or your spellbook. Each player begins with a 6-card hand. The only time in the game that you can mulligan is during this first hand. If anything is not a minion and you would like to swap it, then and only then may you swap, get rid of anything that's not a minion card, draw up to 6 once again, and then that is your current hand. Now, every card that you have in your grimoire will have a blue number at the top of the card called the energy cost. That is going to be the purchasing cost in order to play that card from your hand. You will always have a hand of cards that we'll get into just a minute, and every time you want to use one of those, you're going to need to pay the energy cost. Now, all of your energy is tracked here on your player's mat, and it's over here on the left side or the right side of the board, depending on which side you want to play on. They are both identical functionality-wise. They just look a little bit different and have different flavor. So, choose your poison. But every time you want to play a card, you're going to need to pay the energy cost. And that's what that blue number in the upper left-hand corner of the card is. Now, minions also have a red power number, which is how much damage or how many dice you are going to roll when you are attacking with them. And we'll get into that in just a minute. And then on the bottom, in this little shield, it is the essence, or really their defense. How many damage points they can take before they are ultimately destroyed. You also are going to have sorcery cards. Sorcery cards also have an energy cost at the top left-hand corner of the card. They have a little magic book, which denotes them as a sorcery card, and then they have some flavor text in the bottom. Then the third type of card that you're going to find in your grimoire is attachments. Now, attachments would attach to a minion and would usually give them a boost in some way. Once again, they have an energy cost at the top left-hand corner. They also have a potential boost to their power. For example, this Cerberus is a +3 to a minion's power and also gives you a +1 to the essence or the defense. So that could be really helpful when you're battling against your fellow sorcerer trying to hold out a little bit longer than they do. And once again, they have some flavor text, which we'll get into. It's also important to note that many of the cards will have a little pentagram up right underneath the energy cost. Now, every time you play a card or you cast a spell with that card paying the energy cost, you would get to draw another omen token, which are these little guys. And those are going to help you in the battle phase. Now, as mentioned before, this game is all about trying to control these 3 battle maps, and once you dominate 2 of the 3, you are pronounced the winner. That is the rule for a 2-player game. If you are playing in a 3-player game or a 4-player game, you would spread out around the table. You would put one map between each pair of players. So I would have a map between me and this person, a map between me and this person in a 3-player game, for example, and this person would also have a map between them. So there would be 3 maps between them. Instead of trying to dominate 2 of the 3, you would simply try to dominate your 2 mats on either side of you 3 times. So the first to get 3 victory points, or you've brought that map to destruction 3 times, then you are pronounced the winner. Now, this game can go up to more players. You just might have to either get expansions, which there are expansions available for this game, or you can take somebody else's sorcerer game and mash them together. You're basically just combining decks. You might have some duplication that way, but functionality-wise, you can still play and have a great time. But like I said, we're going to break down the rules basically for a 2-player game because that is the norm for this game by White Wizard Games. Each round is broken down into 4 phases. You have the ready phase, and all of this is handy-dandily on your player's mat right in front of you on this little book so that you never have to miss anything. So in the ready phase, the first player counter is passed. You ready all exhausted cards, meaning if they were flipped 90 degrees because you used them in the previous round, you would ready them and flip them straight forward. If you're familiar with Magic, that's a very common way that they play that in the game. The first player would then either roll this big black 8-sided die to decide how much energy everyone's going to regain that round. So you could get between 1 and 8 energy, and again, that's the blue energy to the left of your player's mat. Or you can just decide that everybody's going to get 4. As a first player each round, that is your choice to make. You set all action trackers to 6, and that would be these 6 little spots on your player's mat which is controlled by the red gem. We'll get to actions in just 1 second. Each player would gain an omen token, and starting with the first player, players put their avatars in the battlefield. Now, depending on which deck you've chosen, you put your really cool standee on one of the battlefields. Since I've chosen Zevrain, this is my cool little standee, and as first player, I'm going to choose to put him in Old London. Now, where you place your avatar does matter, as well as where you place your minions in the future, but we'll get into that once we explain the battle phase. Now, that was the ready phase. On the very first turn of the game, you would skip the ready phase because you're just starting and everything's already ready. And you would jump right into the action phase. Now, during your turn and during that round, you have 6 actions to spend. On your turn, you get to use 1 action and you make a couple different choices. You choose from a couple different options of what you want to do with that 1 action. Then it would go to somebody else. The player on your left, they would choose an action, then it goes around until it goes back to you. Then you spend your next action. So by the time everybody's used all 6 of their actions, then that would end the action phase. So on the action phase, you have a few different options. Starting with the first player, players alternate taking actions to do any of the following. You can, 1, channel energy, meaning gain 2 energy, because you're spending energy to place all of the cards on the table, so you can channel your energy and gain 2 of those back immediately. You can meditate, which means you draw 2 cards into your hand. That is the only way to draw cards, unless a flavor text in one of the cards makes that exception for you. You can cast a spell, which means play a card. And when playing that card, you do have to pay the energy cost. You can activate a power, which means use an action effect on any of your cards. Oftentimes, the cards on the table and your skill cards in front of you all have a flavor text, an action, and it's labeled with the word action. You can activate a power by spending one of your action points to use that action on the card, and usually it has some sort of benefit. This card is a lot about whatever the card says is the rule. There are 100 different options on whatever the card says, so if you want to use that action, just pay attention closely to what your cards say, and you'll figure it out real quick. Or you can reinforce. That's another thing that you can do with one of your actions during the action phase. To reinforce, you would move one of your minions or swap 2 of your minions in adjacent battlefields. So you are trying to dominate these battlefields with minions from your hand. You might be playing minions on, let's say, Whitechapel, but your opponent is attacking Southwark. So maybe you want to move your minions, and on a reinforce, you can move it to 1 adjacent one, or you can swap 2 adjacents. Now, your minions can only move 1 player's map at a time during the reinforce action unless they have a flying icon, which means they can move 2 battle maps over and fly their way over to gain an advantage in that way. So on your turn during the action phase, you are spending your actions, you are spending your energy, you are trying to amass minions on the battlefield and power them up with attachments, cast spells to ruin your opponents, and then that kicks it into the battle phase. So, during the battle phase, you've spent all your actions and you placed cards, and we are trying to win over these battle maps against your opponent. So you would place minions on those battlefields just in front of you, across from your opponent at the battle map. And turn order would go this way. In a 2-player game, the first player would get to attack or declare attacks first on the center map. Then the second player gets to attack first on the flanking or the outer maps. In a 3-player game, it's a little different. It has to do with whichever one is on your left and your right. So check out the rules with that small rule if you are playing a 3-player game. But for a 2-player game, the first player is going to attack the center map first. The second player is going to attack the flanking or the adjacent outer maps first. So battle with Sorcerer is really interesting. First, you would exhaust one of your minions to declare an attack. And the thing that you're really attacking is you are trying to bring the battle map on your opponent's side, their life points, all the way up to 12. It starts at 1 on both sides, and you would mark it with this little red cube. And as you deal damage to that map, it increases all the way up to 12. Once it hits 12, that map gets flipped over, and you have defeated or you have destroyed that map and gained it as 1 point closer. Once again, you have to get 2 maps to win 2 of the 3. So when you declare an attack, you would then roll the number of dice in your minion's power. Now, if you've got an attachment to it, you might add dice. So rather than attack, for example, with this energy-bound prophet, rather than attack for 2 points, I would roll 2 attack dice. And these things are really interesting. They are 6-sided dice with 3 options on them. They have 1 skull, which means 1 attack point, 2 skulls, which means 2 attack points, and a pentagram, which means 1 attack point as long as there is another opposing minion on that same battlefield, or 2 attack points if it goes unopposed, meaning you are attacking a battlefield with no opponents on it. The other interesting thing is, if you roll a skull, whether a single skull or a double skull, the opponent gets to decide where that damage is landing. So, for example, if I've got minions on that field and my opponent rolls a 2 skull, I could decide whether I want my minion to take that hit or whether I'm going to allow it to fall on the battlefield. And depending on where you are in the game, you're going to assess that in the moment. With the pentagram, you, the attacker, get to decide where those points lie. So it gives you 100% of the control, whether you want to knock out one of your fellow opponent's minions or whether you want to send it straight to the battle map. Now, you remember those omen tokens I told you about earlier? As you are collecting these and as you're playing cards, whether they're sorceries or minions or attachments that have that pentacle underneath the energy cost, you get to gain omen tokens. These things will change the game during the battle phase. Let's say my opponent is attacking me with Mizelda's Infiltrator, and she can attack for 3 battle dice. So she would roll those battle dice. She got 1 skull and 2 empties. Now, as an attacker, that's not a great roll for her. So she might spend an omen token to be able to re-roll one of those dice. Now, she could re-roll that dice, not like it, and spend another omen token to re-roll it again. You can do that as many times as you have omen tokens, though you do want to resource them appropriately because you have a few different maps you're going to play on. Now, if you are the first player, you are going to receive the Fate token at the start of the Ready phase. During the Fate token, if you want to re-roll all of the die, then you can flip it over, put it to empty, and once during that battle phase, you can re-roll any one set of all of the dice, which could be huge if it's that one set of dice you really needed to win. So once again, my opponent is attacking the Old London. She rolls these 3 dice. She eventually finds a set that she likes. Let's say she's got 1 skull and 2 skulls, and she's okay, she's happy with that, so she's gonna stay. Now me, the defender, can also use my omen tokens if I want to re-roll any of her dice. Maybe I don't like that double skull, so I want to re-roll it, hoping for a single or hoping for a nothing. Once I'm happy with that, then the damage would get assigned. Now, once again, she got 1 skull and a 2 skull, so then I, the defender, get to decide if I want my minions to take any of those hits, and they are assigned 1 dice at a time. So let's say this 1 is going to go to my Lucifer's Jester, and the other 2 are going to go to the battle map. So then the battle map would raise to 2, and Lucifer's Jester would get a damage token, which is on the other side of the omen tokens. So keep those close, keep them in a little bowl nearby because you're going to need a lot of these tokens in the game. So this continues one map at a time. The first player would attack the center map first, play that out, assign any damage with the dice, and then the defending player would then also get to attack from their side. Spend the dice, roll them, assign all the damage. You would do that for then each outer map and see where things lie at the end of it. Now, once again, pay really close attention to the flavor text in your cards because a lot of times they are going to have a crossing swords section. Now, what that means is whatever that flavor text is, or if it says tactic, it can only be used when you are attacking. So during the action phase, or when you are defending, if you want to use it, you may not. You can only use it when you are attacking from your side during the battle phase. That's something that a lot of players get hung up on, so make sure you just keep that in mind from the beginning of the game. Following the battle phase, once everybody has assigned all of their attacks, and you do have to use all of the minions that you assigned to a battleground. So if I've got 2 minions there, they would both eventually attack. If it does get destroyed, it gets taken away from the battlefield and put into your graveyard. And then you start the end of round phase. Now, oftentimes, nothing's going to happen in the end of round phase. Only there are a certain number of cards that say, at the end of the round, do this thing. So just be on the watch for those. Otherwise, you would go straight back into the ready phase. You would reset all of your exhausted cards. You would pass the first player token. The first player would decide how much energy you want to get, whether you want to roll that big black 8-sided die for a possible 8 or maybe a 1 or anything between. Or if you just want to decide everybody's going to get 4 energy back, you would move your blue energy tracker back up to the appropriate amount and reset the red action tracker back up to 6 for all 6 of your actions. Now, one thing to keep in mind are the skill cards in front of you. The skill cards are directly attached to your avatar or your standee. Your character skill card will always have an action with a 2 crossing swords, meaning it can only be used during an attack. So you can use that action during an attack. Your lineage will often have an ongoing, meaning that whenever possible, it could get triggered during the battle phase, or a tactic for your domain, and that's once again something to be used when you are attacking during a tactic. Now, you can only use those skills wherever your avatar is. If you have an ongoing action that triggers you to draw 2 or triggers an opponent to lose 2 health once they play a certain thing, and that's happening over here on Southwark, but your avatar is over here on Whitechapel, it wouldn't affect it. It's only happening on the battle map that your avatar is. So that's why you want to be careful. If you want to use any of your actions, make sure you appropriately place your avatar ahead of time during the action phase when you are trying to use those things. And just like that, that's basically how you play Sorcerer by White Wizard Games. You just keep going around and around, you move that first player token, you begin with them, you do the action phase, you draw the cards, you get the energy, you place your minions, you reinforce, you plan ahead, you strategize, and then once everybody's run out of action, then you go to the battle phase. You resolve all the battles, you attack all the battlegrounds, and once again, once one player has defeated 2 of the battlegrounds in a 2-player game, then they are declared the winner, they are the head sorcerer, and you shake hands and you be glad that you got to act like a nerd wizard at your tabletop game on a rainy day or a Friday night. That's what tabletop's all about. If you do have any further questions, you can always visit White Wizard Games' website, or please comment below. Let us know if you have any questions and we'd be happy to help you. And once again, if you are loving this game and you think that's something that fits in my house, I need that on my gaming shelf, please head down to Secret Door Games at 215 Main Street in downtown Elkhart, and they will set you up. Secret Door Games also has a ton of demo days where you can go and you can play all kinds of games to get a test of it before you buy, or they've just always got a big stack of demo games that you can go in on any day, grab some friends, try them out, and then maybe leave with it on your way out. Check them out on Facebook at Secret Door Games in downtown Elkhart. And they've always got events, they've got pre-release, they've got minis for D&D, they've got Magic the Gathering and all kinds of trading card games. They've got awesome swag, they've got comics, and they are amazing people. So please, if you are wanting to learn more about this game or any games, you know where to go. Simply Door Games. If you are enjoying this kind of content and you want some more how to plays, let us know in the comments below. And give us a big thumbs up while you're down there, and make sure you subscribe so you never miss out on any of this amazing geeky content. Isn't this a wonderful world we live in? We can talk about tabletop gaming on the internet. But until next time, I am Bozer, and you just keep geeking out.